Salute, fam. This brother Rob here, 52 blocks, Norfolk, Virginia. So it's been a minute, guys, since I've come on and done a video like this, but I wanted to actually come and speak to you guys about this. Is something that's kind of been on my mind, something that really I actually realized a long time ago, and it's really kind of a question for you guys as well. It's like, what got you into the martial arts or combat sports, combatives, whatever area, whatever genre, whatever you kind of fall out at? Like, why that? Of all the things that you can do, why specifically, the combat sports or martial arts? I'll tell you, for me, like growing up, like I wasn't like necessarily one of the popular kids or anything like that. Like I was straight up, like I was the nerd, right? I was the guy that got picked on growing up, okay? And so for me, like martial arts became not so much like bully defense or something like that. Like I never really understood that. People are like, oh, I'm gonna teach you martial arts so you can, defend yourself against a bully. Like that didn't work when I was growing up, because where I grew up, like if you defend yourself against a bully, he comes back the next day with a gun and puts a bullet in your head. Like that's where I grew up. I grew up in the inner city where, anti-bullying could get you laid out, could get you dead, you know what I'm saying? Could get you unalive. Like that's where I grew up. So I wasn't necessarily trying to fight a bully, but what I learned through martial art was really just like self-expression, right? Because when you get bullied or when you get picked on, right, you oftentimes learn how to stifle your voice, to shrink yourself, because you're trying to minimize or you're trying to avoid like those negative interactions and things like that from happening again, right? Because you think, okay, well, I got picked on because I was too this or I was too that. I wasn't enough this. Like I was always told growing up, oh, well, you don't talk black, or you're not black enough, right? Like there's this stereotype, right? And I was told this by like my own people, right? But that was the stereotype that I grew up with. And so martial arts for me is like, I've learned that is like the purest form of communication, right? Because when you are first born, right, when you're a kid, when you're a baby, right, before you even learn a single word, you learn the language of touch. You learn the language of sound, right? You learn how to scream, how to yell, how to cry, right? You learn that as a child. You learn what a soft, gentle touch feels like versus a hard, stern, whip or a slap or beating or something like that. Hopefully you didn't learn too much of that, but you understand the difference between a soft touch and a hard touch, right? And so in combat, right, that there is no lie there, right? So words can lie, is what I'm saying. Words can lie. This type of communication is very deceitful, me using words, right? But when two men step across from each other in the ring, in that crucible, that's the ultimate lie detector. You know what I'm saying? Like that's where the truth, everything that was you trying to hide comes out in the open, right? So if you skipping on your training, if you a coward, if you really don't do what you say that you do, that comes out and that shows up in the ring, right? Your character shows up when you're tested in that crucible. And so for me, like combatives became like that form of expression, because I can express that side of myself and nobody can say that, oh, well, you didn't do it right, right? Because when you get hit, you know what I'm saying? How are you going to tell me I didn't do it right when you just got smacked in the face? You know what I'm saying? And so like the thing with combatives that I realized is that within combatives, there's no rules. And that's what I loved about combatives, because everywhere in life, everywhere that I went, everybody told me there was rules. Like, you can't do this, you can't do that. You are too this, you're too that. You got to fit into this box. You got to fit into this square. You're too black. You're not black enough, right? You're too nerd. You're too much like a nerd, right? You're too antisocial, right? You can't fit in here, right? There's all these things that society boxes they want to put you in. You know what I'm saying? But in the ring, that doesn't exist. You know what I'm saying? In sparring, right? That doesn't exist. When you're fighting, that doesn't exist. All that exists is the isness, the suchness of that moment, you and the other individual across the ring from you. So that's what I get out of the martial arts. And that is the language that I learned. One of the first languages I learned in terms of how to express myself, because I really can't express myself very easily with words. Like, this is not my like native language. This feels very foreign to me speaking to you like this, right? It may seem like I'm very natural at this, I'm very good at this, but I'd rather glove up and spar with somebody. I learn more about you by gloving up and touching hands with you than I do by us sitting down over a cup of coffee or a beer and having a conversation. I'm just straight up, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why like your best friends oftentimes are the guys that you train with, right? The guys that you go to war with. Those are your best friends, because you learn so much about each other in those moments. You know what I'm saying? Things that you can't learn through having a conversation. Things you can't learn over coffee, beer, sharing a meal, things like that. There's just certain things you're just not gonna learn about somebody unless you are squared up with them and you're testing each other out. And that's how you kind of, for me, that's how I learn how to build relationships and bonds, is through that physicality, right? The physicality of touch. So I just want to share that with you guys, on maybe a deeper level of thought than you may have thought about in terms of the combat sports, combatives, martial arts, so forth and so on. But please let me know what you think in the comments. What brought you to martial arts, right? Is this your form of communication, right? And if it's not, maybe it's something else. What exactly is it that brought you and keeps you training? Salute.
52 blocks, every move divine, hand them talk, hold the line. Me no shout loud, my style refine. One move makes skull recline. 52 blocks, set back, rewind. I can't be traced, no motion blind. Flick, twist, grip, my stance design. Battle done for you, see the sign.